On a June morning in 2017, a man pulled up outside of the Michigan lottery office. Standing tall in designer Italian shoes, his dark hair slicked back and gleaming under the fluorescent lights, he approached the front desk and calmly announced that he had won the Daily 4 lottery draw.
One lucky Michigan resident has become a multi-millionaire overnight.
He was convinced that he had figured out a way to win big.
Since 1981, the Michigan Lottery had been drawing 4-numbered ping pong balls twice a day, awarding up to $5,000 to anyone with the matching numbers. But this man didn't just have one winning ticket, he had 500. Skeptical lottery officials guided him to a back office and meticulously checked each ticket. Everyone was genuine, all showing the winning numbers, 7800, from the June 18th draw. The odds of winning were just 1 in 416. Not astronomical, but highly unusual for someone to play the same numbers 500 times in a single day. It took the staff 6 hours to cut 500 checks for $5,000 each. The man tucked them into his sports jacket and drove off in his Lincoln Navigator, richer by $2.5 million. Over the next 9 months, the 40-year-old man returned time and again, cashing in thousands of winning tickets for nearly $30 million, making him one of the biggest winners in Michigan lottery history. His streak defied the laws of statistics and probability, leaving the Lottery Commission scrambling for answers. Had this man cracked the system? Or had he discovered a way to predict the winning numbers again and again? September 14th, 1983. Sterling Heights, Michigan. A city shaped by the dreams of immigrants, where every street echoes with the hopes of a better life. It's here, in a modest home nestled among the close-knit Albanian community, that Victor Jonai was born. Victor's parents had crossed oceans in search of opportunity, bringing with them little more than their determination and a belief in the American dream. But what they lacked in wealth, they made up for in resilience, a trait that would be passed down to their son. From an early age, Victor was different. While other kids played, he was studying numbers, patterns, and deals. At just 12 years old, he wasn't just watching the world of adults, he was stepping into it. When his family needed to sell their home, it was Victor who handled the transaction. A complex process for most, but to Victor, it was just numbers. And to him, numbers were something that could be mastered. Raised in a family where English was a second language, Victor quickly became more than just a child. He became the linchpin of the household. Negotiating deals, handling finances, making decisions, these responsibilities fell on his young shoulders. And with each transaction, each successful negotiation, Victor's confidence grew. He began to see the world not as a series of random events, but as a system of numbers and patterns that, if understood correctly, could be controlled. By the time Victor turned 18, the path ahead was clear. His talent for numbers and his early experience in handling deals led him naturally into the world of real estate. Detroit, with its bustling markets and competitive atmosphere, was the perfect proving ground for someone like Victor. It wasn't long before he secured a full-time position as a real estate agent, and soon, he was making a name for himself in the city's commercial real estate market. Victor's rise was swift. His sharp instincts and relentless work ethic set him apart. While others slept, Victor was up before dawn, scouring market trends, analyzing property values, and closing deals that others couldn't even imagine. Major retailers like Walmart, Taco Bell, and Burger King became his clients, and by his mid-30s, Victor was not just a successful broker, he was a force to be reckoned with. But Victor was more than just a businessman. He was a man who knew how to charm, how to persuade. His clients weren't just doing deals, they were being wooed. Dinners at the finest restaurants, conversations that flowed as easily as the wine, and, when the moment called for it, even poetry. Yet beneath his charm was a ruthlessness that few saw coming. Victor believed in one thing above all else. People lie. Numbers don't. This mantra wasn't just a saying, it was the core of who he was, and it guided every decision he made. But as Victor's career soared, something else began to take root in his mind. His fascination with numbers extended beyond the world of real estate. It crept into the realm of chance, of gambling. Victor wasn't just interested in making money. He was obsessed with the idea that he could outsmart systems, that he could find patterns in the chaos. It started small, almost innocently. Victor began spending his nights at a local restaurant playing Club Keno, a lottery game that seemed to him more like a puzzle than a gamble. And then, one night, it happened. A $52,000 win. To most, it was luck. To Victor, it was proof. Proof that he could see what others couldn't, that he could predict the unpredictable. But this win, this moment of validation, was just the beginning. Victor didn't see it yet, but the line between his business acumen and a dangerous obsession with gambling was starting to blur. The very numbers that had once been the key to his success were now leading him down a path that would ultimately consume him. It began with a simple game. Club Keno, a lottery with live draws every few minutes. For most, it was a fleeting distraction, a way to pass the time at a local restaurant. But for Victor Jonai, it became something much more. As the numbers flickered across the screen, Victor saw what others couldn't, or what he believed others couldn't. Patterns, sequences, a hidden order in the chaos. Victor had always believed in the power of numbers. It was a belief that had carried him through life, from selling his family home as a boy to becoming a titan in Detroit's real estate market. But now, this belief was taking a darker turn. Gambling, at first, was just a way to unwind after long days of deal-making. He would sit alone at the bar, eyes fixed on the screen, watching the numbers fall into place. Or so he thought. What began as a harmless pastime quickly spiraled into an obsession. Victor became convinced that these numbers weren't random, that there was a method to the madness, a method only he could decipher. His nights out grew longer, his focus sharper, as he sought to crack the code that only he believed existed. And as his fascination deepened, so too did his belief that he could outsmart the system. But in 2015, Victor's life took a turn that would push him further into the abyss. His father passed away, leaving a void that Victor struggled to fill. The man who had been a guiding force in his life was gone, and in his absence, Victor found himself searching for something, anything, to regain a sense of control. The answer, it seemed, was in the numbers. With his father's death, Victor's obsession with gambling escalated. The Michigan Lottery's Daily 4 game, with its promise of larger payouts, became his new fixation. Unlike Club Keno's small, frequent wins, the Daily 4 offered the kind of stakes that Victor craved. The thrill of the game, the possibility of winning big, became a way for Victor to escape the pain of his loss. Victor began pouring more time, more money into the Daily 4, convinced that he could apply the same principles he'd used to dominate real estate to beat the odds. His belief in this system of patterns and algorithms grew stronger with every draw, and with it, his confidence that he could conquer the lottery. And so, Victor did what he had always done. He turned to numbers. He began developing a system, one he believed was foolproof. He spent countless hours poring over past lottery results, creating intricate spreadsheets and charts, tracking the frequency and sequence of specific numbers. To Victor, this wasn't just gambling. It was a science that he, with his years of experience in real estate, believed he could master. His system was complex, a blend of statistical analysis, pattern recognition, and instinct. Victor tracked not just the numbers, but the dates, the times, the conditions under which they were drawn. His spreadsheets became his obsession, his most prized possessions, the tools that would, in his mind, bring him unimaginable wealth. After every draw, he meticulously updated his charts, convinced that he was on the brink of a breakthrough. And then, in June 2017, it happened. Victor's obsession seemed to pay off in a way that few could have imagined. He walked into a Michigan lottery claim office with 500 winning tickets, each bearing the same number combination, 7800. The odds of winning once were slim, but Victor had done it 500 times. His reward? $2.5 million. For Victor, this wasn't just a win. It was proof. Proof that his system worked, that he had cracked the code. The thrill of winning $2.5 million was intoxicating, but it wasn't just about the money. It was about validation. It reinforced his belief that he was in control, that he could bend the odds to his will. This moment wasn't just a triumph, it was a turning point, solidifying his obsession and transforming what had once been a hobby into an all-consuming pursuit. But this win was also the beginning of a dangerous spiral. Victor's confidence in his system blinded him to the reality that his success was likely due more to luck than any predictive algorithm. The $2.5 million win was a high that Victor would spend the next several years chasing, pouring more and more money into the lottery, convinced that he could replicate his success. What Victor didn't realize was that this moment of triumph was laying the groundwork for his eventual downfall. October 2017. Victor Jonai was at the pinnacle of his career. With a reputation as one of Detroit's most formidable real estate brokers, he took a bold step to cement his growing influence by founding the Imperium Group. On the surface, it was the embodiment of success, a legitimate, thriving real estate company poised to take on major projects and attract high-profile clients. The walls of the Imperium office were adorned with the faces of business titans, Steve Jobs, Mark Cuban, figures who symbolized ambition, innovation, and relentless drive. To the world, Imperium Group was a confirmation of Victor's prowess in business. But beneath the polished surface, there was a far more insidious reality. Imperium Group wasn't just a real estate company. It was just a front that allowed Victor to feed the obsession that had taken hold of his life. The same obsession that had led him to believe that numbers, when properly understood, could be bent to his will. The company's resources, meant to fund real estate ventures, were instead funneled into his relentless pursuit of lottery winnings. By day, Imperium was a beacon of success. By night, it was a vehicle for Victor's addiction, driving him deeper into the abyss. Victor's charm was his greatest asset. It was this charm that allowed him to maintain the illusion of Imperium's success. He had a natural ability to inspire trust, a skill he honed over years of deal-making. When potential investors came knocking, Victor would take them on tours of impressive properties, offering glimpses of what seemed like golden opportunities. His confidence was contagious, and his track record in real estate was impeccable. Investors were eager to buy into his vision, believing they were backing a sure thing. But behind the scenes, Victor was playing a different game. The real estate deals he pitched were often fabrications, elaborate stories designed to keep the money flowing in. Investors had no idea that their funds weren't going into prime properties, but rather into thousands of lottery tickets. To them, Victor was a visionary, a man who could turn opportunity into profit. In reality, they were unwitting participants in a grand deception, their money fueling a habit that had spiraled out of control. As the demands of his double life grew, Victor turned to a familiar tactic, the Ponzi scheme. It was a simple yet effective way to keep up appearances. He used money from new investors to pay off earlier ones, creating the illusion that his real estate ventures were yielding substantial returns. When investors saw their money coming back with profit, they were reassured, convinced that they had made the right decision. Encouraged by these apparent gains, many invested even more, deepening their involvement in Victor's scheme. For a time, this delicate balancing act worked. Victor continued to present himself as a successful mogul while secretly operating a fraudulent gambling empire. But the strain of maintaining this facade was immense. He needed a constant influx of new investors to keep the scheme afloat, and the pressure was mounting. The more he gambled, the more desperate he became. The riskier his deals, the greater the deception. Victor was caught in a vicious cycle, one that was rapidly spiraling out of control. The cracks in Victor's carefully constructed world were beginning to show. The weight of his double life was becoming too much to bear. Each day, the line between reality and illusion blurred further as Victor scrambled to keep his empire from crumbling. The more he tried to hold it together, the more it seemed to slip through his fingers. It was only a matter of time before everything he had built came crashing down around him. By mid-2018, the facade of Victor Jonai's carefully constructed life began to crumble. What had once been an unstoppable streak, powered by confidence and an obsession with numbers, was now faltering. The lottery wins that had flowed so freely, feeding his belief in a foolproof system, were becoming scarce. Despite pouring unfathomable amounts of money into the lottery, sometimes as much as $100,000 in a single day, the big payouts remained elusive. And with each missed win, Victor's debts, fueled by his Ponzi-like schemes, grew larger. The pressure from investors, all expecting their returns, became unbearable. The cracks in Victor's double life were widening, and with them, his mental state began to fracture. As the wins dwindled, Victor found himself trapped in a vicious cycle, trying to recoup his losses with each new ticket purchased, but only digging himself deeper into financial ruin. His once unshakable confidence in his lottery system began to waver, but his obsession had blinded him to a harsh reality. His past success had been built on luck, not on a system that could predict the unpredictable. The stress of maintaining his image, coupled with the ever-growing financial pressure, took a severe toll on Victor's mental health. Desperation to preserve his lifestyle and reputation pushed him toward increasingly dangerous decisions. With the walls closing in, Victor's behavior became erratic, even desperate. He started borrowing money from dubious sources, securing loans with exorbitant interest rates just to keep his scheme from collapsing. Paranoia set in. Victor became convinced that the Michigan lottery was conspiring against him, sabotaging his chances of winning. He imagined that the lottery commission was manipulating the machines or the draws, making it impossible for him to succeed. This growing paranoia only fueled his obsession further, driving him to make even riskier, more irrational choices in a futile attempt to regain control. He started seeing patterns where there were none, in license plates, in phone numbers, in the most random of events. Every number, every combination became a clue in his increasingly delusional mind. His behavior became erratic, pushing away those who had once been close to him. Even his business partner, Gregory Vito, who had been his confidant and ally, began to distance himself. As Victor's world crumbled, he clung desperately to the belief that he was just one big win away from solving all his problems. In March 2018, Victor experienced what would be his last significant win, a $2 million jackpot. For a brief moment, it seemed as if his luck had returned, that his system still held power. But the reality was far bleaker. The $2 million was a mere drop in the ocean of debt and obligations Victor had amassed. The money was quickly absorbed by overdue payments, and the fleeting euphoria of winning was replaced by a cold, stark realization. His system might not have been as foolproof as he believed. This final win marked the beginning of the end for Victor. The realization that his once reliable system was no longer delivering the results he needed sent him into a tailspin. The debts he had incurred were insurmountable, and the pressure from investors and creditors was relentless. Victor's confidence, once his greatest asset, was now shattered. The foundations of his double life, built on deception, luck, and obsession, were collapsing around him. With each passing day, Victor's world grew smaller, more desperate. His final big win, rather than being a turning point for the better, became a catalyst for his inevitable downfall. The illusion of control that had sustained him for so long was now slipping away. Victor was forced to confront the harsh reality that his luck had run out, and there was no way to turn back. The man who believed he could outsmart the lottery, now on the brink of financial and personal ruin, stood on the precipice of a downfall that he could no longer escape. By July 2019, Victor Jonai's world was falling apart. The financial pressures he had been struggling to manage were now overwhelming him. The once promising real estate projects had ground to a halt, with contractors and investors demanding money that Victor simply didn't have. Lawsuits started piling up, each one exposing more of the lies and deceptions that held his empire together. The stress of maintaining the appearance of success while everything crumbled took a severe toll on Victor. He lost weight, suffered a mental breakdown, and was briefly hospitalized. His desperation grew as he realized that his elaborate schemes were unraveling, and there was no way to keep up the facade any longer. In a final attempt to stave off disaster, Victor secured a large loan, using assets he didn't even own as collateral. But even this wasn't enough. In August 2019, with nowhere left to turn and fearing for his family's safety, Victor packed a duffel bag and left his home, driving to the FBI field office in downtown Detroit. There, he did what he had been avoiding for so long. He turned himself in, confessing to the full extent of his crimes. Victor admitted that he had defrauded investors out of over $26 million, and now, with no options left, he sought refuge in custody. The legal consequences of Victor's actions were swift and severe. In August 2020, Victor Jonai pleaded guilty to defrauding investors out of $26 million. The court documents laid bare the extent of his gambling addiction, the deception he wove to sustain it, and the trail of devastation left in his wake. Victor was sentenced to 53 months in federal prison. The sentence marked the end of his fall from grace. A man who believed he could control the numbers, now reduced to a number himself in the federal prison system. Alongside the prison sentence, Victor was ordered to pay restitution to his victims, though it remains uncertain how much of the stolen money he could ever repay. The story of Victor Jonai is one of brilliance turned to madness, of a life consumed by an obsession that led to ruin. It serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition, of the fine line between confidence and delusion. And in the end, it's a story of a man who lost everything in pursuit of a dream that never really existed.